Hey, I'm Dr. Joel Baumgartner. I want to welcome you back to the university. Today's topic, lesson 102, is the obesity crisis, why the wait? Really when we look at what's happening in our nation, it's really now or never. Because of our environmental and our lifestyle choices, people are becoming more overweight, obese, and there's a huge rise in chronic disease. We're seeing diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, dementia, cancer. All those rates are going up year by year. In the next 3 years worldwide, they're saying there's going to be about 2.3 billion overweight individuals, with 300 million that are morbidly obese. Obesity is really on the rise in America as well. It's estimated by 1 in 2 are going to be obese by the year 2020. It's the leading cause of preventable death in the United States and the world. I say preventable. This means that these are lifestyle choices that we're making that is leading to death. We're really on the wrong trend. If you look at this chart behind me, you can see the obesity trends in adults in America. If you look back in the 50s, we had about 10 to 15% of adult people were obese at that time. Where we're at now, we're getting closer to about 25 to 30%. Again, by 2020, almost half of our population is going to be obese. Can you imagine the amount of chronic disease, depression, fatigue, cancer, heart disease, strokes, the things are coming down the pipeline? We've got to make a change now. It's even sadder is the trend that's happening in our children. If you look at this chart here, back in the 1960s, almost no kids were overweight. They're out running around, they're playing with their friends, they're playing hide and go seek. They're eating foods grown in the backyard garden. 5%. Where we're at right now, we're getting close to 30% of our children are overweight or obese. Again, by 2020, it's going to be almost 50%, and we've got to make changes now. This is not fair to our children. It's really become a crisis. This is the first generation of children to live sicker and to die younger than their parents. The life expectancy is declining for the first time in history. Obese children have a 70% chance of becoming obese adults, which means if we don't make those changes as children, they're going to live that life for the rest of their life. These unfortunate stats in children go like this. Right now, 1 in 3 children are overweight. Childhood obesity has tripled since 1980. It's now about 17%, or 12.5 million of our kids. About 2 million children are morbidly overweight. In New York City alone, this is scary, 40% of their children are overweight or obese. 1 in 3 children born today, they're going to develop diabetes. And diabetes is the leading cause of stroke and heart attack and blindness. Childhood obesity has a greater impact on life expectancy than all childhood cancers combined. Childhood obesity has the greatest impact on life expectancy than all childhood cancers combined. It's amazing. And we can make a change with this. What's very scary is we're now seeing heart attacks and strokes in kids less than 16. Why is this happening? Why is there this crisis in our children? There's an imbalance. There's an imbalance in what these kids are consuming. The foods these kids are consuming are poor nutrient foods. They're drinking processed sugars and a lot of pop. The other problem is with the imbalance is they're having more calories consumed, but they're also burning less calories. They have a slower metabolism. They have a slower growth rate, and they have a lot slower activity. Things are influenced by 3 things. Genetics, can't do much about that. Environment, you can do everything about that. In behavior, you can do everything about that. 2 of the 3 things that influence obesity in children, we have total power and control over. What about technology? Is that good or bad? It's good in many, many ways. It's advanced us in many, many ways. I'm talking and I'm showing this amazing thing to you that's because of technology. But you know what? It's also slowing down our children. There's too much computer, too many gadgets, too many video games. There's less physical activity. Studies show at home and at school. A lot of school programs, they're dropping the phy-ed classes. Less than 50% of elementary students have daily PE, and it's even less in high school. Also, kids are eating more meals outside the home. The meals they're eating are less fruits, less vegetable, less lean meat. Stuff that you learned about in your basic nutrition class right before this. There's really an increase to fried foods and, of course, the junk food, the fast foods. It's not just a problem in our children. This is becoming a global crisis around the world. 350 million diabetics now worldwide. They're estimating it's going to be 450 million by 2030. China almost had no diabetes 25 years ago. Now they have 24 million. There's going to be 42 million diabetics in China by 2030. What's happening in China? There's fast food restaurants. They're not sticking to their old, diet of healthy vegetables and good meats and fruits. From 1983 to 2012, diabetes has increased 10 times. That means it's gone from 35 up to 350 million people worldwide. By 2020, 20 million deaths from infection. There's going to be 50 million deaths from chronic preventable diseases like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. The truth of this is it's not going to be cured by a new medication. We need a few simple things. We need lifestyle changes and we need behavioral changes. We need things that are going to affect ourselves. Through affecting ourselves, we can affect our family. Our families can affect our communities, and our communities can affect our world. But really it starts with us. What kind of changes are we going to make? So what is the BMI? You hear this thrown around a lot. BMI is body mass index, and this is just a general index that we use to classify people based on their height to weight ratio of are they a healthy weight or an unhealthy weight. So when you heard me talking about people are obese or they're overweight or they're morbidly obese. To be overweight, it means that your BMI has to be over 25, so 25 to around 30. To be obese, your BMI is greater than 30. There's two classes of obesity. To be morbidly obese, your BMI is greater than 40. And now we've added another category, the super obese category, which is a BMI greater than 45. Once your BMI is greater than 25, especially greater than 30, you have an increased risk of death, heart attack, stroke, cancers, all related to the extra weight that you're carrying. Chronic disease really directly goes along with increased body weight. So if you look at this graph behind me, it shows the mortality rate increases based on your body mass index. So the heavier you are, the higher your mortality rate or your risk of having death and disease from your weight. So extra body weight truly does equal disease. These diseases are directly related to, with every study we've looked at, to extra body weight. Those include heart disease, diabetes, cancer, including the breast, colon, and uterus, hypertension, high cholesterol, stroke, liver and gallbladder disease, sleep problems, arthritis, and infertility and other menstrual problems. 1/2 of all diabetics, they have heart disease. 2/3 have an undiagnosed or silent heart disease. The death from stroke or heart attack is 4 times higher in people that are overweight. There's a 4 times higher dementia rate. Obesity also increases cancer rates. It's the leading cause of high blood pressure. It's the leading cause of liver failure. It's also linked to mood disorders and depression. 30% of diabetics have less sensation in their extremities. Diabetes, like I said earlier, is the leading cause of blindness in people over 24. It's also the leading cause of kidney failure. This is really creating a healthcare crisis. We can't continue to be, having more unhealthy people in the United States and trying to cover their healthcare costs. It's not gonna work out. 3.4 trillion will be spent in the next 10 years on obesity-related problems. 1 in every 6 to 10 healthcare dollars spent is spent because of our lifestyle choices. And this cost is going to double with every decade moving forward if we continue on that trend. Overweight Americans cost healthcare systems 40% more than the healthy population does. Billions of private and government money is spent every year on new drugs to treat chronic disease. We said billions. Billions of dollars are spent trying to create a new drug to treat chronic disease. It is so much more simple than that. It is so much more simple than that. If we look at the healthcare crisis, this is kind of the trends in the GDP from the 1955. That's the gross domestic product. So how much are we spending on healthcare? From 1955 to where we're at now, you can see that trend is we're spending more money on healthcare with every year. That line looks exactly like our obesity line did. As people are getting bigger, more healthcare costs are being spent based on those problems. So with this crisis, we can't support the rise in costs. Implosion is inevitable. So what we need to do is we need to break the pattern and we need to change. 90% of chronic disease is preventable. That means it's choices that we're making. We need to target the root causes to truly change and decrease the health in healthcare. Okay, we know there's a problem. To solve that problem, we really need to kind of study and find out, well, how did we get here? How did we get to this crisis? I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. Let's talk about technology advancements and conveniences. Most of them are very great. Things like electricity, the sewing machine, phones, airplanes, the internet, cars, vacuums, washing machines, cell phones. We have computers, radios, ovens, refrigerators, even the light bulb, smartphones. These are all, quote, progress, but the question we have to ask ourselves is, overall, when it comes to our family and our health, is it truly progress in all areas? They have all led to least calories consumed, or less calories expended and more calories consumed with all these technological advances. Number two, how do we get here? We think about the standard American diet, SAD, standard American diet. It has changed a lot. It's gone from an lower kind of calorie diet and a higher metabolism individual to increased calories now from animal fats and processed sugars, decreased fruits, vegetables, and complex carbohydrates are being consumed. Let's go back 100 years. Let's look at the 4 different diets and how things have changed from the early American diet to the pre-industrial diet to the industrial diet, now to our new Western diet. Let's just kind of take a look at what's happened. Here we have the early American diet. The early American diet, this was the hunters, the gatherers. They had to travel to find food. They had to travel to find safety. They're always on the go. They had to go and fight for their food and daily survival. They ate wild animals, animals that grazed the land, and they gathered roots, fruits, and vegetables. There were no fast foods back then. Moving on to the 1800s, we have the pre-industrial diet. So we had a domestication of plants and animals. We're now farming and we're raising cattle in our backyards. Farming became kind of a mass food production type business. We started canning foods for storage. Sugar was invented, as was cereal grains, fatty meats, salamis, sausages, and oils and salts were then used to flavor foods. We still had a lot of labor jobs and a lot of domestic work that burned a lot of calories during the day. Now, getting to the Industrial Revolution, the industrial diet in the 1930s, refrigerators came around, so we could store things like dairy. We could store meats much longer. Beef was becoming mass-produced, and these beef started in the 1885. They started fattening these beef up in the feedlots. Before 1850, all beef was free-range and pasture-fed. We started developing condiments like crackers and ketchup, dips and sauces, and canned foods. And breakfast cereal was introduced in the 1930s, where you could have that on-the-go type food, much less plant-based stuff in the morning, more processed carbohydrates. Now we think about the standard American diet, now where we're at now, the standard Western diet. Before 1960, food prep took most of the day's time. After 1965, it showed that we spent about 2 hours for prep time for those meals during the day. By 1990, there's less than an hour spent during the entire day prepping your meal. If we look at calories as well, it really actually increases during that same time as well. Back in 1950s, we averaged about 1,900 calories a day. Now in 2008, we average, a study shows we averaged about 2,600 calories a day. Back in 1957, your average hamburger was a 1-ounce hamburger. Now the average hamburger is a 6-ounce hamburger. If we think about a 6-ounce or a half-pounder, it's actually pretty small. Now we can supersize, you can double the bacon and cheese, so things are even getting better or worse now as we are in the 2000s. So we think about the standard American diet, the new Western diet, the staples that we have. For example, sugar. In the year 2000, a study showed that we consume over 150 pounds of sugar a day. We're getting that through soft drinks. So if you look at the soft drinks, back in 1942, the average person had about 60 12-ounce cans of soda a year. Maybe they celebrated, they have it at a wedding. 1957, the average drink size was 8 ounces. In 1997, the average increased to 32 ounces and 64-ounce sizes. Between 1942 to 2005, production increased 10 times in soda drinks. The average intake of soda now is about 411 calories daily from soda sugars. Teenage consumption has increased 70% from 1979 to 1994. The next thing after soft drinks is refined white flour. 1950s brought the largest increase in nutrient calories after sugar. So in the 1950s, we were able to make white flour. With white flour, a huge increase in our nutrient void calories were consumed. In 2000, that same study showed that we consume over 200 pounds of flour in our cereals and stuff every day. The other sad thing is the vegetables and fruits and those types of things. Studies show that the amounts of those eaten per year have decreased. Also, oil consumption. Now with vegetable oil and all these kinds of oils, we're cooking more in oils, we're eating more fat foods, and those are increasing as well. Next, how did we get here? The second thing after the way our diet has changed is, unfortunately, we're not having any more, or we're having less family meals. Food is eaten away from the house. We're having less fruits and vegetables, more processed and less nutrient dense food. 1/3 of parents do fast food frequently. About 1/5 of meals are consumed in a car. 12% of adults' calories are consumed from fast food choices. Today, children eat about 1/4 of meals away from the home, and fast food is about 50% of those meals. What about the psychological benefits of eating with the family? Kids that eat with their family at home, they have better social adjustments, they have higher grades, and they have less drug use. All positive things. What about snacks? Number 3, how did we get here? Snacks. A long time ago, there just weren't a lot of, quote, snacky foods, fast foods, gas stations with tons of racks of junk. A snack is considered really anything that's consumed between meals. You can have healthy snacks, by the way. Studies show that there's a much more calorie-dense package in snacks compared to regular foods. In 1978, about 28% of us ate 2 or more snacks a day. In 1996, 45%, and now about 60% of us eat more than 2 snacks a day. And these are those bad snacks, not an apple. Obesity, obese children. About 100% of obese children eat at least 1 snack a day. 36% of obese children eat at least 4 or more unhealthy choice snacks a day. 4 or more. If you say those snacks are probably having 200 to 400 calories per snack, it's unbelievable. You can see why there's a problem. Number 4, how did we get there? A change in human behavior. We have less physically active people. There's no need to work for food, to gather food, to prep food, or for survival. 60% of our days are spent doing sedentary activities. TV, followed by the computer, video games, all those things are occupying our times. There's a direct correlation with TV time spent in obesity in both adults and children, the studies show. Kids are spending more time indoors and less time outside. When kids are outside, they're roaming, they're looking for stuff, they're playing, they're interacting, they're laughing, they're running around. Children spend over 4 hours a day in front of the TV, unfortunately. Less time walking, running, exploring. That's also decreased imaginative play. They're not developing their brains like they used to. So their mind and their body are really becoming less engaged. Number 5, how did we get there? We have more stress and less sleep. It's not a good combination. In 1959, the average adult slept about 8 hours a day. Now we're sleeping less than 7 hours a day. Poor sleep patterns are directly related to obesity. 70 million Americans suffer from insomnia. 10% of Americans are on a prescription sleep medication. And recent data shows if you're on a sleep medication, you're 3 times more likely to die early. And stress is on the rise. We've got more stress at the work. We have poor diets, less physical activity, more inflammatory burden in our diet, poor sleep, like I said. Family dynamics are getting more stressful, stress in our relationships, and a lot of stress at work as well. So next on what's causing the crisis. Most of our current medical prescriptions are treating risk factors and symptoms. For example, hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, depression, insomnia, hot flashes. We need to really focus on the cause of disease, not just treating the symptoms of the disease. We need to focus on things like diet, on lifestyle, environmental influences, and what can we do to influence our genetics. Let's turn now and talk about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is really something that is really plaguing the United States and the whole world. It's basically what's happening as we get more fat on our bodies become less resistant to, or less sensitive to insulin, is what the word insulin resistance is talking about. Our consumption of sugars, liquid calories, refined carbohydrates like breads and cereals and pastas. What happens with all that sugar load is our cells become resistant to the insulin, and we need a higher amount of insulin to balance out all those sugars. A high insulin in the blood is the first sign of a problem, and insulin levels unfortunately aren't checked as often as we should be checking them. Continued high insulin levels in our body leads to obesity, muscle loss, inflammation in the body, chronic disease, heart disease, stroke, dementia, and cancers. Sugar highs followed by sugar lows, those are early sign of insulin resistance. This can be treated and is preventable. New drugs, surgery, those types of things, that's really not the solution to our crisis. It's really time for a change. We need to attack the causes, the poor diet, stress in our lives, poor sleep, toxins, food allergies and sensitivities, sedentary lifestyles, and also poor personal support and community around us. We must make a decision. We need to make the decision to change our health and change the health of our children. We need to start with nutrition, more activity, and really less technology. We need to change how we eat. We need to change our stress and change our lifestyles, increase our physical activity, and increase those positive relationships around us and that sense of community with people that have the same kind of lifestyle philosophy that you are trying to achieve. This quote by Marianne Williamson, I think, is very important for all of us. And it goes like this. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel the insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people the permission to do the same. So again, I want to say cheers to all of you for taking this journey. I want you to embrace, enjoy your journey to health. And together we're going to spread our knowledge to our families, our community, and our world. Thank you.